many locals were dragged here by somebody visiting from out of town? Same hands. You over there waving frantically. Have you been on the tour before? No. How long have you lived here? 12 years? It's about time. Oh my goodness. Listen out, sleeping on benches, even asking strangers for money. Yeah, it's a far cry, huh, from what you get today. Well, back then, I think the locals thought the best solution, knock down the buildings. And beautiful Victorian buildings were laid to waste and replaced by parking lots and the like. And Bill Spidell stood up and said, no, this has got to stop. This is our birthplace. A city with no past has no future. His goal was to keep our history alive, protecting the buildings, our birthplace here, with a simple thing. Let's get it historic status. So the tour was a way to get people down here interested in the history and signing the petitions Bill put together to that end. And it worked. In 1970, 500,000 signatures were submitted to the federal government. 500,000 signatures did the trick. Pioneer Square became protected in 1970. At the time, it was one of the largest national historic districts in the country. Yeah, and Bill thought the tours might last a couple of summers. He's permanently underground. It's okay to laugh at that. It was his joke, all right? He had a great sense of humor. He loved bad jokes and dirty jokes, puns. And this irreverence runs like a thread through the writings he did. Now, he did the column, he did dining guides, and he did history books. 2 of his history books are still in print today. We use them as guides on the tour. Primarily this one. It's The Sons of the Prophets. It's Bill's first history book. The prophets in the title. It's all about money, and that's what Bill concluded upon doing research on our early founders. They were here to make cash. Legally, sure. Illegally, no problem. And they made mistakes. They were short-sighted, dim in their endeavors, and he was sort of cursing them out with this title. 1863. Both photos, in fact, show you that same time frame. Got a lot of wood. Yoster's Mill's been here for 10 years by this point, so you have people moving to the hills as the trees are logged out so they can get out of the muck. And you can see the muck. You can see the sawdust in the streets, the things sunk into the road. I wasn't kidding you. It was awful. So this fire, and if you just want to look at these while I'm talking, I'm fine with that. So this fire worked out really well. On June 6, 1889, a young man named John Back was melting down glue in a cabinet shop. 4 blocks from here, First and Madison, was the shop. Glue used to come in brick form, so he's got a big brick of glue, and he's breaking it up, throwing it into a hot, open flame. That's fire, big special effect. And the glue bubbles over, woo, catches fire. Oil-based product, grease fire. He threw water on a grease fire in a wood town on a windy day with an inadequate water system. 2 doors down was a hardware store selling things like gunpowder, dynamite, and ammunition, so that blows. The hydrant system only worked with 1 hose. There was no pressure in it. And it went from bad to worse. And 12 hours, 32 blocks done. Killing? None. Yeah. 25,000 people were here. Look at the photos on each end. There's one there, one on the far end. And you'll see more in the museum today. Pre-fire, post-fire, day after. But you can just get an idea. The town lay in ruins. And as they're cleaning up and counting heads, they say, yes, this is great. We can start over. And that's what we call it the Great Seattle Fire. It's not the immensity, it's the joy they shared. Yeah, the city's got a plan now. And they have this big meeting the next day, a big open-air meeting. It's the only kind you can have. And the first thing they go with, you guys are catching all the jokes. This is good. And the first thing, you might all be catching them, I just not like them, but that's fine. First thing the city proposes, a new building ordinance. No more wood in the downtown core. Buildings had to be 80% non-flammable. Stone, steel, brick, everyone on board there. Next. We built too low. Tide flat? Too low. The plan now, the city said it's time to regrade, which means move dirt. What dirt? The hills. Imagine what it looks like by 89. 26 years later, it's all residential. City's plan. We're giving all you people money, you're moving your homes, and then the city will sluice down, water down the hills, bringing the dirt to the tide flat, thereby elevating the whole place. Huge project, right? The hills are like this. 3rd or 4th Avenue, tide flat, water. So if you water down these hills, you're taking big hoses aimed at the dirt, and you're going to change the shape of it. Whoosh. It's going to look like this, a much more manageable, gradual slope. The numbers, city said if we raise it 8 feet by the water, it's a good starting point. We can take care of those tidal problems and keep our port. So there's 8 feet. Still a hill. 10, 15, 20, and so on, topping out the neighborhood of 35 feet. Pack it down, build the city up here. Now, horses and carriages were kicking up mud and rocks and pebbles, debris, pelted and splattered, filthy things were flying off the wagons, killing people. Nobody died in the fire. Kegs of liquor, bam! Windows and doors were smashed. Oh, and speaking of smashed, we had a lot of saloons. How many of you think drinking and climbing ladders is a good idea? No need for a 12-step program. We'll just, oh, no AA either. Just AA. Yeah, 18 people quit drinking because they died. But obviously, the plan is to have the sidewalks flush with the streets. And they were really taking their sweet time, because really what were they focused on? Bringing the hills down, putting streets up and buildings up. Oh, sidewalks, yeah, we should get moving on that. So you had gaps in some areas for a year or two, but eventually they get it all taken care of. But look up and see what you have above you here. These are the sidewalks, the belly, if you will, of our modern day sidewalks. As we're here, people are right up here doing sidewalk stuff in Pioneer Square, waiting for buses, buying crack, getting coffee, drinking 40s, all kinds of stuff. So how did this happen? Not that. The arches and I-beams, hold it up. These are I-beams. The lower beams, original? No, they're attached to the original for support. So look up and you'll see what I'm talking about. Everybody see those? I'll come all the way down. So those I-beams go in first. They're impaled a foot into the wall each direction. And then from one beam to the next, they use arches, because those are very sturdy structures. On top of that, then they lay the sidewalk. So this is the underground. The sidewalks are hollow, first story covered up. All right, how you guys doing? I know, I'm giving you a lot of information pretty quickly. Yeah, I'm trying to do the whole book. Yeah, I mean, it's a good read, but $12 is $12. It's a couple of drinks, right? So I'm on page 238. If it's too fast and effective, that's not so good. Okay. Did you notice how the artwork has changed? Yeah, the logo. Well, you got to go walk by. If you don't want to go in, that's fine, but do a walk by just so you can see the artwork. The siren on their logo was initially drawn with her hair flowing away from her upper body, so they drew in full breasts and nipples. Yeah, I think that's where they got their double latte. But yeah, a full-figured woman, a navel, and she's pulling her tails up and apart. And people started writing complaints, and in the early 1980s, Starbucks was an international company. They caved to the pressure and covered her up. Yeah, people ask. But speaking of women, though, loosely we were. And speaking of loose women, wow, they did this survey here in Seattle. 1887, the city decided it was time to establish a tax base. So the surveys go out. Who are you? What you doing? 23,000 people, and most of them were loggers, a bunch of young, single men. Sure. The city was surprised, though. There turned out to be 2,500 young single women who all listed seamstress as their occupation. The city thought that awfully peculiar. 2,500 women sewing dresses in a logging town. So they put together a committee to investigate, and a bunch of men volunteered, citing civic pride. And the mayor selected 7 of his closest friends. They disappeared for 3 weeks of exhaustive research, and they found no sewing machines. A lot of them said the work was done by hand, but still, the city was up in arms, and newspapers attacking the city for its lax policies, saying the ladies of Hades are running the show, they've arrived, demanding the city drive them out of town. And the city listened, and the city taxed them. Yeah, and then gambling and liquor. This was called an open city at the time, not uncommon. A lot of cities would go this route. And this entertainment tax was providing Seattle with 87% of its operating budget for many, many years here in Seattle. Bill talks about this in his book from an economic perspective. Madam Lou Graham gets a chapter. He calls her the hostess with the mostest. She was one of the few women who treated this seriously as a business opportunity. I mean, opportunities for women were a little different in the 1880s. She joined committees, attended city council meetings, her real money investments. She was friends with the bankers and told the guys at the banks, hey, if you can't help somebody with a loan, but they're kind of close, send them my way. Truck in 2001 came down like a big old heap, and Seidelberg Ironworks said we can fix it. They did. It's all the original metal. Took them a year and a half. They pounded it back into shape, all by hand, of course. Pieced it together in segments, and there she is. The glass is new, but it still has historic status. We're going to go into the Pioneer Building, but rather than stopping out there, I thought take advantage of this. The Smith Tower, I did mention that. You guys can go up there for $1 off. Your wristbands will give you that. So $7.50, I think, is their asking price. There are bigger views in town, but the historic perspective is amazing. All the older buildings giving way to the newer growth. If you like interiors or architecture, it's definitely worth your time over there. You guys will notice a lot of the shops give you little discounts on your wristbands. If you don't want to wear them, that's fine. Just hang on to them, though. Our bus tour, we have a Sub Seattle. It's a driving tour, not an underground bus. And you get $5 off that. It's a cool driving tour. It goes through some of the neighborhoods. Subs and subcultures. So they go through the International District, talk about Asian influence, they talk about Native Americans, they talk about gay culture and rock stars. The whole bit, a couple of good stops. Fantastic tour. So we're going to go down the side over here. Follow me.